Are
It's
we rolling, Bob?
we're
Oh my
recording.
God, it's us again.
Here we are. It's the
It's
Danny and
not
Troy
us, it's
show.
somebody else.
Maybe. Yeah, we've been talking about the deep fake,
Hmm.
yeah,
Ugh.
facial imitation videos that are rolling out now and getting even more sophisticated and realistic. And yeah, it's some interesting times, but I assure our listeners, I'm the real Troy, and I'm not sure on your side,
Can I
Danny.
touch you? Can I touch you? You sure
Mm.
you sure seem real, Troy. Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
another
Reality bite.
spontaneous, yeah, recording of the
Of
lives.
vinegar and baking soda. That's what we are.
Yeah, which one am I? The
I think
vinegar.
you're the baking soda.
All right.
You can be whoever you want to be, though. It's okay. I don't mind. Or, actually attributing ourselves to some verifiable substance just
Mhm.
does not quite seem right, Um, it's weird. Talking to you and having associated with you for a number of years. Oh, Jesus
Sure.
Christ. Um, I think it's changed my perception of reality.
Right.
And maybe, in the future I'll be able to explain those words, but right now I'm not quite sure.
Mhm.
It's a alternative reality, really, of being allowed this kind of permissiveness to express myself.
Mm.
But I want you to know that you are being shared in your energy and what you allow, what you give, how you respond with other people. Because when you and I speak, and then I speak to other people, um, there's another part of me that comes from speaking with you that extends itself into speaking with others.
Wow.
In a manner or a mannerism of being able to freely contribute, um,
Hmm.
in a way in which it's rather intimate, if I may use that word,
Sure.
only because it goes rather deep into myself, and learning to express in this freedom um, another part of me. And I wanted to ask you, and of course keep it somewhat intimate or private, um, how is it, or why is it, or what is it that being with, not with me in this case, but being with other people, I suppose we could say women in this case, because you've made an emphasis of that rather distinctively so far, that brings out something in you um, that can only come through a relationship with a woman.
Well,
What is it that women bring out in you? Because you and I, we seem to appreciate the feminine to a high degree, and yet at the same time, it's I wanted to say uncontrollable. We're at a point where really we're which is encapsulated in womanhood, I might say, of which you and I seem to be in somewhat, for lack of a better word, infatuated. What is it that the feminine brings out? We'll keep this
sure.
personal in you. We'll talk about me some other time. I've got something I want to read, but
Mm.
which I think in a large extent, to a large extent, deals with the relationship between the masculine and feminine. You know,
Right.
the world seems to be caught up in nonsense. You know, now they're saying, okay, well, it's legal or not legal to allow a person who is under 18 to decide for themselves which if they should take a gender blocker or not. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I feel like I'm in some kind of, you know, really weird nightmare, questioning whether what is reality, what is not reality, what is the purpose of this these reports, why should it be important to me, why has it become overwhelmingly important to the general population or the media or whatever. I mean, it seemed if I go back to younger days, I would think it's absolutely it's absurd. It's
Uh-huh.
absolutely absurd.
Sure.
You know, and I would say in my support that Elon and I agree. Whatever.
Mhm,
You know, if it's not Elon-esque, it ain't.
mhm,
Whether it's
mhm.
peace in China or peace in between Russia and Ukraine. I sent him a question. I said, and what about the Middle East? Keep going, keep
Right,
going.
right.
What's
Yeah,
the solution
yeah.
here? Let's go.
The
And
solution.
then we'll eventually get to the point about how do we establish peace between the North in the United States and the South, which
Right.
it, it's a division that's there for a purpose. It's not political or whatever. It's like, why don't you keep your nose out of our business? And that is extendable not only to the Civil War and where it's left us and what kind of psychological whatever is being employed. And we may as well extend. Next time I'm going to ask him, hey Elon, can you solve the problem between men and women? If there
Sure.
are any left. I mean, everybody seems to be, some degree of between
Right.
the idea of being male and the idea of being female, and there are
Mhm.
157 different variations. I mean, it almost seems like some kind of an opportunity to establish a redefinition of who we are as people.
Mhm.
And here we are, we're sort of like defining the pie based on a slice of pie.
Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe it can help out if you give us your opinion
Sure.
on what's going on in your life, at least, because you're a little like me. I don't mean to be derogatory, and uh, why we are enjoined in a relationship with the opposite sex.
Sure. Well,
What I mean,
yeah.
what do you get out of it? I'm questioning it for myself because
Uh-huh.
it seems to me like, okay, sexual relationships between men and women is like a result of the relationship that we establish between ourselves and another person. With
Mhm.
there have been many variants. You can be, I don't know, whatever sexual definition you want of yourself. But I seriously think that, if you wait a minute, that'll change.
Right.
I mean, I'm not, I think I'm pretty heterosexual. I think I've always been heterosexual. I'm never, even when I look at porno, I don't sneak a peek at, the other stuff. I'm just not interested, but I can feel there's somebody behind me pushing me, with their fingertips to consider this. And it's like, you mind if I just live a straight life? Is that okay with you?
Mhm.
And would you mind getting the hell out of my life with you and your notions? What do you
Right.
think, Troy? What's going on? What's going on for you? I mean, how
Yeah.
does how does how does it involve you in your life and your sub life?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, currently I'm in a great relationship, I think, with now meeting another person, and it doesn't really matter if it's male or female or whatever 150 or whatever in betweens are.
I think it's in the thousands now.
Sure, but it's really about connection, and I think I enjoy that aspect of almost if we go to the yin and yang, black and
Mm.
white. I mean, I cannot imagine what it's like to be a woman. So that's what
Oh, come
intrigues me.
on, Troy, give it the old
I could
college
try,
try.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, being someone else, you never really experience the true, you know, other person. And that's part of
Mm.
life is that we are a, a large amount of individuals with our own aspects and perspectives to experience and also pursue, which takes me to the next step is like, I think there is, I mean, we talk about it often, this higher power, fate versus
Mm.
destiny, and all this in between, like having courage and free will um, versus everything set in place. But yeah, I think there is a drive, especially, talking about my history of meeting my first wife and how we fell in love. I mean, for me, being a um, still a teenager, there was
Mm.
definitely that physical attraction that was just kind
Mm.
of the big force. But what it evolved into is, some beautiful children, three daughters that I believe were just destined to be in this world. And yeah, no matter um, what we did as individuals, they were, the driving force behind, okay, you know, you guys need to meet, you need to, get together and 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 create these new lives of our children. And yeah, so there's something there that I think is like we were saying, you know, uh, cannot be described, or once you try to describe it, it's you take away what it really is. But yeah, in the essence of reality, you know, I think for me personally, one, I enjoy talking to people that are coming from an alternative side than myself. And two, I really enjoy people that get my side and understand and wish. And I think you and I are in that space. I start talking and you go, yeah, got it. Or the other way, I say, yeah, I got you. I understand. Or we start saying things that are in your, like, from my side, you start saying things that I was going to say anyway. So yeah, there's that kind of likeness where I feel comfortable because I know, and also, it doesn't matter. We've reached a point in our relationship where we can share anything and we don't
Mm.
have any preconceptions about
Comfortably,
comfortably.
comfortably.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, whatever. So that development of that relationship has come to that point, and we kind of are somehow aligned in our same thinking and processes on really deep and intriguing conversation points about whether it's, the meaning of life or what is love, or, how did we come about with, the possibility of lizard-based aliens, Anunnaki, and 360,000 year cycles and all these things. And why do we, as human beings, like to interact with each other? What is the meaning of value? All these things. And then also we talk about, okay, what are we going to do, this week? This new project coming up. So it jumps from really deep, insightful, thought-provoking, almost, yeah, thought experiments that we can put ourselves to kind of, we talk about virtual worlds and things like that, to reality. Okay, now we got a meeting coming up. What are we going to talk about? What are we going to let how are we going to let the conversation flow? So those things, really um, what I look for, that's kind of the number two. The number one is like when I talk to Layla, I want to get her perspective. I want to see what would she do in this situation, or this is me and what's going on. And yeah, she brings that as a woman that I wouldn't have.
Who is that? Who is that?
Layla.
Oh, Layla.
Yeah, so she's my current partner, and who I've now dedicated
You have
together to.
in-depth conversation with her. Going back to femininity and womanhood.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what.
And is that what keeps you together?
Well, our conversations touch on this depth or other points, but we wouldn't talk about it level that you and I talk about it. We just have this. I have this kind of connection with her because I know she feels a certain way. I mean, she's, in terms of religious, grown up in a Christian school and has Hindu well, not strict, but
Influence.
Influence. So she basically, this is the best way to describe. She was born into a Hindu family, went to a Christian school, and lived in Bhutan long enough to identify herself as Buddhist. So she has this really, I think, calm, insightful notion of why she's here and what's the purpose, and without talking about it or discussing it in detail, that just emerges from her persona. And yeah, although I can grasp kind of those aspects, it's still something that, because of, I guess, my scientific aspect, I want to break it down. And that's what I think you and I do, is like start going in, what's the answer here? Why? And we kind of, the science just cuts it up. And not that, you talked about, in order to, what's that saying? See, how a frog works, you got to kill it, you got to open it up. But we do that a little bit, but we still have that, appreciation of, and not wanting to go too far because we lose the true meaning. But yeah, anyway, I'm trying to explain two aspects of it. One is that, having someone that's really in line with what you're thinking, and another one that's a little bit, although still understands the same concepts, but comes from a different perspective. And that's why I love Layla as a woman, but it wouldn't really matter. I think, going back to earlier relationships, I think it really did matter because my children were destined to be born. And that's why that, connection happened and we spent that time together. But now coming into, I guess a new level of maturity, it's more about, finding someone that you just love hanging out with and connecting to. And Layla's a person that does that for me, and she is a woman.
It's like I heard before somewhere along the line. I like you so much, I call it love.
Right.
Right. It is beyond, but it stems from, an appreciation of how you feel about the person that I think that's important too, that not that you suspect or your feelings come from your feelings come from your association with the person that you come to know. It's a little different. You and I both know as mature men that after boyhood there comes manhood, and boyhood is, just an infatuation with the physical, I think. And I'm not speaking for women, I'm speaking for myself, that there are almost insurmountable odds against understanding the nature of a relationship based on sensuality. It's like, sure, I can give myself some semblance of what it's like to be with a woman, but it's almost like, in a sexual mode, it's almost like, reading a comic book where the characters are talking about something philosophical in content. You're listening to, I don't know, Kant or Nietzsche or whatever, in the context of the dialogue of two fantastic characters in a graphic novel.
Uh-huh.
That,
Yeah.
that's how I would relate to relationships between the sexes in growing up. It's like, and then what happens is, it's not solved through balloons, right? Or action features or featurettes in graphic novels, that it becomes a crutch, really, in trying to understand something that, if we don't diverge from seeing the world or life in this way, that we're destined to live a comedy, which principally comedies, I think, are, people trying to outdo themselves, right?
Right.
It's like, that's laughable. Keep trying. I want to keep laughing. But as if we mature as a result of not the relationship, but I would say more often than not, the disappointments that such a relationship would bring, leads us in this new era of how we communicate with each other. Here we are, 11 hours apart, principally. I may as well say 12. One side, I'm on the dark side of the moon and you're on the other side. How do we relate in a single time moment, as we are now, and being together to discuss issues on the same chronological plane? How do we come to some kind of a decisive understanding, at least, of what you share and what I share and what we have in common, and how that projects us forward? Because really and truly, whatever it is we end up talking about, whenever we talk about these kinds of things, is, I would say, rather monumental. And that's noticeable in the ease with which we converse, in the subject matter, and how we hop around and
Sure.
touch on different aspects or different sides of the subject, and then come to some kind of level that we feel like we've gained enough to be able to engineer or navigate our own lives to a certain benefit. And that's what I think keeps us coming back together is, I have a thought, you have a thought, we talk, whether it's business or not. I think it's all somehow or another interconnected. If we talk about, dementia today in this discussion, okay. If we don't, that's okay too, because principally I believe that in tomorrow's meeting, we already know what we're going to say. And the subject matter that we discuss now, whatever it is, somehow or another polishes the surface, or rounds the corners of what that discussion will be tomorrow.
Mhm.
It may not be evident, right, in a sort of, in a way in which we've conducted our lives and ourselves, in a linear form, right? To believe that we actually understand something. I think in a lot of ways we speak tangentially with whatever's on our mind, knowing that it's on our mind, and knowing that how we discuss these kinds of things will determine the outcome of this particular business venture. How about that?
Mhm.
I like to think of us as like reality chemists, right?
Okay.
That would be kind of like a discussion, well, not kind of like, but like the discussions we have. The one I would like to, why I asked for, this particular recording is because of something that I wrote. This is sort of like, the whole idea of creative expression, right?
Yep.
And being able to grease the wheels, I guess, right? To talk about whatever it is we talk about. It's like living your life every day in preparation for going to a party that night, unknowingly, unsuspectingly, that you're going to be talking about something, and that if you hadn't lived your life the way you did that day, you wouldn't have talked about it at the party,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Well, yeah.
And then, go ahead, you
That
seem
that
ripe for a
connects
comment.
to, I mean, what we were talking about, fate versus destiny, and
Hmm,
free will versus everything set on the path for us. But I think, it's a combination of things meant to happen and allowing things to happen.
hmm, hmm, hmm,
So,
hmm. So as a kid, we got an allowance, and
mhm,
now we give ourselves a different kind of allowance,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Hmm,
And I think that's
interesting.
like what major problems are in the world right now. It's like a lot of people are saying, you can't do that. And that,
Watch me.
yeah, is like the cause of uh, turmoil and separation, and or
Hmm,
even um this aspects of self-doubt or not knowing or confusion. And
hmm.
someone says, you're not supposed to think that way. Are you sure you're a male? And they go, oh, maybe I'm not. and and is there something
Doesn't
else?
matter. Yeah.
But if you think around the aspects of, everything's fine, everything's okay. Nobody's saying you cannot do that. And it would bring about, I think, some real fundamental solutions to the world. Of course, the
An
systems,
indirect approach? Is that what you're
well,
kind of getting at?
I guess, it's kind of um, going back to the spiritual teachings, or, learnings, I should say, from my side. It's about, and I'm going to sound pretty, I don't know, cliche here, but finding the peace within yourself. So, peace,
What? Say that again.
finding peace
Of finding
within
peace within yourself.
yourself. And if everybody in the world was able to find the peace within themselves,
Hmm,
the world would transform like we've
hmm,
never seen before.
hmm. Without the intent to solve the world's problems, right?
No, there'll still
What I
be
read into
problems.
it is just your own individual orchestration of your
Hmm.
life.
Sure. Yeah,
The chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
that's right.
Okay, I'm going to abruptly change things.
Sure.
Okay. This particular expression, I entitled "The Death of the Father." When my father died, I was young, 19 years young. I felt the surge of responsibility to take his place come over me. Some may say I felt that I had to take his place, as in being possessed, which made me give a lot of attention and care to my mother, as if I were her husband platonically, more than a young man should have to. Europa, as in the EU, my mother is German and exceedingly proud of it, is like a man who moves into my house that is in a position to take my father's place, but never can. And here I use the pronoun s/he, she, which includes the male and the female, is unwanted in the first place and exceedingly unable to do so. She assumes the power position while having no authority to do so. She is unwanted and has not taken the time to show any care or attention to the family she supposed to have inherited. Indeed, she is unknown and unwanted. She is greedy and lays claims to the mother without knowing anything about the children. She cares about herself alone. She must be evolutionary by evolutionary standards. She must, by evolutionary standards, die out. Extinction. She assumes that she has somehow inherited an authority over everyone without their knowledge or approval. I think it's fair to say that some make an attempt to be nice to her or him because that is the way they were raised. Some are seduced into acceptance without knowing why, except they feel the draft caused by an empty space being filled with something akin to air filling a vacuum as unforeseen, as power that abhors a vacuum. This is Europe today. Fucked up. The fatherly position is clearly a total failure in that Germany, the fatherland, if you will, has allowed itself to be seduced in turn by its own relationship with an older, without permission, big brother, throwing his weight around and allowing themselves to be tempted into servitude by the little and borderline subsistence he provides as just enough to induce the family to be careful not to insult his desires and cause the stipend he provides to cease. Enough to scrape by. European countries are prostituting themselves in such a way, cheapened by their resentment of being in this situation. They feign cooperation with a weakened and peace-seeking manner, come to be known as the status quo. They are mules. When a gentleman caller appears, everyone shivers in their boots out of a lost sense of fear that memories, all but lost and transferred into weaknesses, will cause them to act in desperation to prove that servitude has made them stronger as a part rather than a whole, an independent and capable body, which it is not. Laziness and taking the easy way out has instilled a dependency that makes a poor substitute for independence and worthiness. This is not a generation, but a degeneration. We feast on the same fantasy mana, as available as an ice cream. Captivating and absorbing, it pulls us into a sugar high that does not wish us to be boringly conscious of the overwhelming. And even though I don't conclude with any remarks about what that has to do with the death of the father, I feel that it's obvious that in some ways we all have been homogenized.
Right.
You know, they call it equality, right?
Mhm.
But we all have to be the same, blah, 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 follow the, all that. It brings me to the
Mhm.
brink of vulgarity. There's no
Okay.
other way to express it, you know, about, I would like to be left alone to think in my own way
Mhm.
without having to regard what I'm thinking as being okay or not okay.
Sure.
And who says and why. And what about in moving too fast? What about the whole idea that I'm supposed to have this done and make a transition for the digital generation that's already here, who knows nothing of personal experience, and I'm going to be relegated to some corner where I get to play with myself, and that would be the sum total of my life.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
and who says? And at the same time, I feel like my brain is being filled with this gruel of being like everybody else.
Mhm.
It's like, isn't that kind of stupid and
Mhm.
boring, certainly,
Mhm.
that there's some end in sight to following the status quo? I just don't get it. You know, I'm lost in this idea that I have to agree with what the media, which is the tool of the politics, of course, right, and manipulating people's lives to show everybody that I'm politically correct. And what the fuck? Why?
Mhm.
Why do I have to be or seem like I'm politically correct when, of course, I could never be unless somebody sucked the brains out of my head?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a big
I
question.
feel like a slave, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
a slave to um, being right or being compliant, or should I say complacent, right? So that I don't get into trouble and be marked as a guy who, I don't know, I would like to think of it as who has his own ideas, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Instead of, which I seem to think that today, you know, it's better that we think of ourselves as part of the unity of the whole or whatever, and that if we don't agree with what we're being stuffed with, that not that we're going to hell, but we're going to a simulacrum of hell. You know, you're
Mhm.
being separated, you're being excluded, you're being banned, you're being silenced, you're whatever those terms are, you know, in de-twittering you.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're not allowed in this group because we're not talking about that, Danny.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, why don't you find your own commie group,
Mhm.
asshole? And it's like, where did all that come from? You
Mhm.
know, we don't even get to discuss it. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
rejected.
Mhm.
Next.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes me just want to, like we did in the 60s, drop out.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah, I got a fancy iPhone, smartphone, and what? If I didn't, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't even qualify.
right.
You know, now there, as soon as I bought a 12, the 13 came out, and then it was the 14. And it's like, I'm sick of it. Stop
Mhm.
requiring me to buy a fucking smartphone every time you add a point to it.
Mhm.
You know, and if I don't, then I'm, you know, an outcast because I can't use, you know, 2 or 3 other features you've added that I wouldn't use anyway. Now I've got a
Uh-huh.
split screen, which, I've been waiting for years for Apple to do that. Now they've got it and I don't know how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, that was 20 years ago. I wanted a split screen, Steve and
Mm-hmm.
company.
Mm-hmm.
I can not do enough to stay in tune.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, part of that statement is the realization or acceptance that we'll never do enough to stay in tune. So why? I mean, of course, it's for me fun, and things are changing, and you can see. Well, I shouldn't use the word fun when we come to major problems in the world that we, but it still is something intriguing, or it brings out a curiosity in me.
Hmm.
But at the same
Data science,
time,
you're speaking of data science, right?
well, yeah, it's just that I, accept that the world is the way it is right now and
Hmm.
probably will continue to have problems, even if, we do get to the point where everybody has found peace and joy and fulfillment within themselves. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be chaos and havoc and issues to resolve. So yeah, it, I think the main point is that what you're saying is that's the way it is, and yeah, no need to fight it or say I wish it wasn't that way, or it'd so be better if my neighbor didn't do that all the time, or if yeah, someone's got to solve this problem. Why hasn't somebody solved it? Those guys in government haven't, or trying to, yeah. Of course, there's issues and opinions, and I'm not saying we all just be compliant and complacent, but yeah, come at it from a point of first acceptance, and then wouldn't it, yeah, be better if we could? And that's like you talked about Elon Musk and his suggestion, and he's, I think, a person that he doesn't he doesn't give a fuck about anything, but he doesn't have to. But he's still out there saying, "Hey, I got an idea of how to solve this conflict," and you know, well, and gives it a go. And then, yeah, if there were these aspects or, I guess, values allow that going into broken systems now, it's that we've just come through the life of evolution where these core values have been overlooked around letting people think what they want or be the way they want, or being open to yeah, alternatives, and what, for whatever reason it is, that's the way it is right now. We live, and I guess have come into a society that is built on these primal, primitive aspects of you got to be part of the community, or going back to the tribe when we were just coming out of the forests, and if you were an outcast, if you didn't come along with the rules of the tribe, then you will be banished and have to do your own thing. But that's now, of course, yeah, some fundamentals and wisdom in that, but today's society, it's not doing us as much good because we have such ruling bodies that want to just, I guess, yeah, get power from taking control and saying everybody's got to wear masks or whatever it
If
is.
you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Is this something that we can change consciously? I mean, because principally we are limited to our own sphere of influence, right? Not that we have any influence at all, unless of course we're recognized or we're, become the adverse side or whatever. But is it even reasonable that we should object? Because when you object, you become vocal, you become a
Right.
target,
Right.
you become, as I said, part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you, just simply enjoy the day, walk down the sidewalk, pay the admission fee, go in, buy something from one of the vendors and go home. And if you don't do that, then you're a problem,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how we designed it. And that's the way it should be,
Mm-hmm.
because blah, 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 whatever. And I find myself being more and more vocal in objecting to doing what it is I think they want me to do, whoever they are, you
Sure.
know? And I try more and more to be less and less a part of them and less a part of not them.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways, I don't feel like I have a choice as to whether or not I'm with you or against you. And in George Bush's, that moron, opinion, right? If you ain't with us, you're against us. And it's like we have to subject ourselves to the appearance of idiocy, and be happy about it
Mm-hmm.
before somebody comes and, blows the door down and kills everybody in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, next time, could you send me like a little envelope or something that tells me what the hell it is I'm supposed to be doing,
Sure.
rather than objecting
Mm-hmm.
or, not going along with it? Whether people can say those words or not, I think that's how most people I come in contact with feel. Or in some, if we can go to, let's say, just a Russian version, why I'm calling it that, I have my reasons, but let me make my point, is that if you find life to be objectionable, then become a specialist. And when you become a specialist, you can concentrate on what it is you're doing and ignore everything that's happening around you. Uh, in that, when you become involved in a specialty, you have that option.
Right.
It's sort of like, I didn't read the paper this morning because I'm still trying to figure out this mathematical formula, right? And so I have the right to ignore that which would annoy me anyway, and by which I might get a little pissed in thinking that I really don't have any power or control unless it is in some particular application in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But for Christ's sakes, don't speak with the cashier about it when you're checking out at the grocery store. She's not going to understand you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing you want to do is to upset the apple cart. So just keep quiet, go back home, continue to, develop your application or whatever the hell it is you think you're doing as an expression of who you are.
Right.
Even though nobody really gives a crap, of course, unless, you come up with a security patch for Apple
Mm-hmm.
or, an Amazon app, then you can be famous.
Mm-hmm.
Take your money and go the hell away.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I don't know, I'm getting abstract here,
Well,
but
I think it's great. I mean, in the abstract world, I mean, and the running theme of the series being creative expression, that
mm,
gives a level of freedom. I think, no matter how courageous a person you are out there in the world, saying, standing up for your beliefs and, this needs to change or this should be, this is a solution. Everybody listen to me. Hey, I'm over here. And you can put yourself on the line or, risk the ultimate at worst, which could be, crucifixion. But if you come into the
Crucifixion, you said?
yeah, it could be crucified for talking about what you believe in. Just as that other guy, get his name. Someone wrote a book about him, and or you can come to the creative expression world, just write it down, or think about it, with that aspect. So this is just a story, and it gives that freedom. I mean, this is why, the whole movie making industry, because people love a story. They love also to, I think, telling the story, being able to bring in these courageous statements, but it's just fiction. It's just a story. It's just, I'm not, don't crucify me for telling a story, but that's the power and the beauty, I think, of coming into this angle of creative expression.
You make it sound like it's an outlet,
Yeah,
that at least we're giving you the chance to express yourself within reason.
that's right. Well, when it comes that, not people interpret it as not creative or fiction, then people start saying, hey, you're outside the rules. But you can always go back, I think, and take it to the story, the fiction, the alternative reality. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody, what would the world look like if the world was made up of individuals that found inner peace?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We've been through that. Now we're modern people.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that history lesson, Troy. We've learned otherwise, thank goodness, that it's awfully better to do things the way that control says we should do them, because we've
Sure.
learned from the past, and we want to avoid any kind of conflict or differentiation. We're all part of the herd. And can I have a big moo now from everybody, please? Let's all moo. Sorry you didn't moo. Can we see you for just a minute before you leave? Moo. Oh, shit. All right. Thank you, Troy.
All right.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yep. I
So,
guess we're on for tomorrow morning then.
yep.
And I'll be in touch with you half an hour early.
Yep.
We're going to talk about detecting dementia,
That's it.
right?
Great. Yeah.
Of which we'll probably use this video, as an example of people who obviously have dementia,
Yeah. We could.
who can't admit it to themselves.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'll admit it tomorrow.
Sounds fine, Danny.
Thank you,
All right.
brother. I'll call
Take
you
care.
early in the morning. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Bye.
Talk then. Have a great
Okay.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.